Today I'm going to teach you step by step how to make this stunning sunflower welcome door swag. Don't worry, this is a beginner friendly tutorial. You'll find a full materials list for you below in the description of this video. Welcome to Stillwater's Wreath Designs. Come on in. Good morning, friends. It's Nikki here at Stillwater's Wreath Designs, and I've got some exciting news for you today. The design that we're making today is a very large statement welcome door swag. Here's a picture for you. And for the past 18 months on Facebook, I have been offering wreath and door swag raffles about once every 2 or 3 months. And it occurred to me this morning as I was making my coffee that I've never done that here for my YouTube friends. And so I apologize, but I definitely want to invite you to participate if you'd like to do so. Basically, how that works, I offer a certain number of slots. For today's swag, it's 15 at $10 a piece. You can purchase as many slots as you would like for the raffle. You'll need to pay via Venmo. And then once all of those slots are filled, I enter everyone's name into a randomizer wheel and give it a spin. That will determine the winner. You'll get 1 slot on the randomizer wheel per ticket that you purchase. So if you purchase 1 ticket, your name will be entered once. If you purchase 4 tickets, it'll be entered 4 times. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you don't live in Fulton County, Indiana, as most of you don't, there is a $20 shipping fee that you would be responsible for. You can purchase your tickets through Venmo. If you don't have Venmo, you can drop your email address below in the comments and just tell me how many slots you'd like to purchase, and then I'll send you a payment link. Once all of those slots are filled, then I'll video the randomizer wheel and we'll see who wins today's beauty. Now, I will tell you, I posted this late last night on Facebook, and I believe as of first thing this morning, 8 of the 15 are already sold. So if you want to participate in the raffle, make sure you do so right away, and we'll see who the lucky winner is. All right, guys, let's dive into today's design. Today we're going to make a fall sunflower welcome swag. We'll be using a 28-inch pine swag base, this super cute 10-inch round metal welcome sign. I actually grabbed this from Etsy from Creek Road Designs. I'll leave that link for you below. We'll be using a single roll of 10-inch burlap colored deco mesh, some butterfly picks, some greenery, and of course, some sunflowers. Let me just take a quick moment to welcome anyone who's new here to the channel. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about step-by-step DIY wreath and door swag tutorials. We have new tutorials uploading every single week, so if you love that sort of thing, I'd like for you to hit that subscribe button and join us. For those of you that have been here on the channel with me for a while, thank you for coming back. I so appreciate you. You guys, there will be a full materials list for you below in the description of this tutorial so that you can recreate this beauty if you'd like to do so. What is going on, everyone? Be sure to say hey below. Tell me where you're watching from. All right, guys, the first thing we need to do is fluff out our pine swag base. When you get these, they typically come to you a little bit beaten up. They're pretty flat from the shipping stage. And so you'll see that there's a loop at the top of the swag. It basically looks like an upside down Christmas tree. And all we're going to do to fluff this out is to open up, wake up all of these pine ties. These are called pine ties. And so we're just going to make sure that they're fairly equally dispersed on either side and then straight up. We're going to leave this flat on the back because that's the part that's going to rest on you or your customer's door. So we're just taking a couple minutes here to fluff this guy out. Okay, so once you've got your pine base fluffed out, it should look something like this. So 3-dimensional all the way around, except for that back side. It's going to stay nice and flat. Let's go ahead and set this swag base off to the side. And you're just going to need 1 10-inch roll of burlap colored or tan deco mesh. And we're going to cut, we'll start out with 14 pieces of this deco mesh. We may need a few more pieces, we'll see. And guys, I really don't measure it. I literally lay the roll in front of me, pull that mesh, straight up so that my arm is at a 90-degree angle, and I cut. Usually the pieces then turn out between 20 and 24 inches. Yep, this is exactly 24 inches. Not looking for perfection, guys. Nobody's going to be measuring those. So go ahead and grab your scissors and your mesh and cut 14 pieces at 20 to 24 inches in length, and I'll meet you back here. Now that we've got all of our pieces cut, let's go ahead and grab our pine swag base and bring it back to our work area. Friends, if you are making this along with me today, feel free to push pause on the tutorial as often as you need while you work along beside me. But for time purposes, I like to speed ahead through the repetitive parts for those of you that are just watching and will be creating this later. Okay, so we're going to add cruffles throughout this entire swag base. And so to make a cruffle, we're going to grab a single piece of our deco mesh, lay it in front of us, curl side up, and then we're just going to roll those ends in a couple, 2 or 3 times to tuck away that raw edge. If you're new to working with deco mesh, you'll soon learn that deco mesh loves to fray, and by curling those ends under, that really helps protect that raw edge and prevent the fray. Once you've got those ends curled in a couple of times, we're just going to scrunch and gather. I'm just walking my fingers together and pinching in the middle. And this is a cruffle. What a cruffle really is, guys, is basically curls on the ends and a ruffle in the middle, hence the cruffle. So you're going to keep that cruffle pinched in the center. We'll come back to our pine swag, and we're going to start at the top left and just work our way all the way down to the point and then come back up on the right side. We're going to find 2 neighboring pine ties, grab that cruffle, place it all the way down to the base of those 2 neighboring pine ties, and then we're just going to twist those pine ties together 2 or 3 times tightly to anchor down our cruffle. Let's do one more together and then we'll speed ahead. So you're going to grab a piece of deco mesh, lay it in your work area, curl side up, roll those ends in 2 or 3 times, and then just walk that mesh together. We've just made our cruffle. We're going to come directly below that first cruffle we added. We'll find 2 neighboring pine ties, place our cruffle all the way to the base, and you guessed it, give those ties a couple of tight twists. So take a few moments to get all of your cruffles added in. We're going to put them one next to the other all the way down the left side. We'll come all the way back up the right side. You may need a few more pieces. That's totally fine. Depends on how closely you place them. But get this full of cruffles and I'll meet you back here. Now that we've got our pine swag base full of our cruffles, just look at that nice full base that we've made, guys. Super cute. All right, so the next step is to add our metal sign. And we're going to add this with 2 20-gauge floral wire stems. I'll leave a link for these below for you. But first we need to punch a couple of holes in our sign. This is actually a jewelry punch, and it is perfect to make teeny tiny holes in those metal signs. And I'm not measuring, guys, I'm just putting one at the top and one at the bottom, about a 1/4 inch in. You can see that. Then we'll grab one of our floral wire stems. I like to fold it in half loosely just to identify that center point. I'm going to run that right through that hole that we just made. And then at that center, I'm going to come to the back side and just give that floral wire stem a couple of twists to keep it from sliding around. And then we're going to do the same thing on that bottom hole. So I folded that in half to find that center point, running that floral wire stem right through that hole, coming around to the back side of our sign and giving that stem, a couple of twists. So now we're ready to anchor our sign right down into the swag. I'm going to place my sign right in the center of the swag and up just a bit. So I'm going to take these floral wire stems and poke them right through our swag. We're going to flip it over and make sure we're still happy with our placement, and I am. And then we'll do the same thing for our bottom set of floral wires. All right, let's take a look. Yep, that looks good. It's nice and centered. I'm happy with that placement, so I'm going to flip it over once again and give each of those floral wire stems 3 or 4 more tight twists. And remember, it's about 80% tension. Then I'm going to take my small wire snips and just trim off those excess bits of floral wire. And then I'll grab my needle nose pliers and just pinch those ends together and curl it back into the wreath so that it doesn't poke someone if they happen to grab the swag right there or scratch our door. And then I like to take just a little bitty pea-sized amount of hot glue and run it right over that floral wire stem to ensure that it doesn't slide. We'll give that a couple of minutes to dry and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, once that glue is nice and dry, go ahead and flip your swag back over and look how stinking cute it is already. All right, so the next step is to add our bows. So let me show you the ribbon that we'll be using. You guys, just a quick tip on ribbon. You can use as many or few varieties as you wish. I always prefer varying widths, and always make sure you use wired ribbon. That's what really helps your bows and ribbon tails to maintain their shape. You're also going to need a standard pipe cleaner that matches somewhat in color to your ribbon theme. And so what I've grabbed here, guys, is a 2.5 inch sunflower, a 1.5 inch mossy green, a 1.5 inch burlap and butterfly, and then a 5/8 inch black and white Swiss polka dot. We're actually going to add our bow to the bottom right hand corner below our sign, and then lots of tails at the upper left. So we're going to start with that 2.5 inch. I'm going to make some pretty large tails. We can always trim off the excess, but I may curl my ribbon tail. So I've got some 16 inch tails. Then I'm going to pinch my ribbon. So my left hand will be my holding hand and my right hand my working hand, and we always want that pretty side out. So I'm going to give that ribbon a hard twist. And we're going to have 2 loops and 2 tails of each ribbon type. So those loops are probably, 5 inches or so. Let's see. Yes, those are 5 inch loops. So I've made that first loop. I've pinched it underneath my thumb. I've given that ribbon a hard twist so that pretty side is out. I'm going to make another 5 inch loop. Pinch that underneath my thumb. Then I'm going to marry those loops together and make sure they're the same height, and they are. And I'm going to cut another 16 inch tail. This is just approximate, guys. No one's going to be measuring your tails or loops. And now we're going to move on to the 1.5 inch mossy green. And at this point, we're not going to measure, guys. I'm just going to use my previous tails as my measurement. Those tails a little bit shorter than the previous, so about 14 inches if you're measuring. We're going to make those loops about the same size, maybe a 1/2 inch shorter. So 4.5 inch or 5 inch loops. We'll marry them together to make sure that they are the same length, and they are. And we'll cut off another 14 inch tail. Gosh, sorry about all that noise, guys. My dog is upstairs running around like a nut. Okay, let's move on to the 1.5 inch butterfly ribbon. Same thing. Make those tails about 14 inches. Place that underneath my thumb. Give that ribbon a hard twist. make 4.5 to 5 inch loops, and we'll be making 2 again. Give yourself some patience, guys, if you're new to wreath making. Marry up those loops to make sure they're the same height, and they are. And we'll cut those 14-inch tails. All right, last one is our 5/8 inch black and white Swiss polka dot. And I'm going to make 2 smaller loops. These are probably 2-inch loops. And I'm actually going to make 4. So I've made 1, 2, twist again, all the same size, 3, twist again, and cut off a 14-inch tail. Now we're going to grab our pipe cleaner. I folded that into a loose V just to identify the center, and we're going to wrap that pipe cleaner right around our bow stack. Bring it around to the back side and tight, tight, tight. Twist that 3 or 4 times. Once you've twisted that nice and tight, cut off the rest of that pipe cleaner and toss those bits away. So this is what it's going to look like, guys. It is not pretty yet, but we're going to change that. I'm just going to pull all of my tails down so that they're going in the same direction. That's all we're going to do before we add it in. And then we'll fluff later. Okay. Once you've got all of your tails going in the right direction, bring your swag back to your work area, and I want this guy directly below my sign, off to the right hand side. So I'm going to place it at an angle like this. So I'm going to find a couple of neighboring pine ties, and you're just going to twist those pine ties right around the center of that bow stack. Now before you secure it, guys, make sure your loops are all on the side that they belong and your tails are all going in the right direction. And if you have a little bit of leftover bit of pine tie, just tuck them back and out of the way. And now we're going to fluff our bow. So fluffing takes a little bit of time, guys. Give yourself some grace. Be patient with yourself. I always start at the bottommost loops. I'm opening them up with my hand, lifting them towards the ceiling. I'm going to pull those 1.5 inch loops into an X pattern, going in opposite directions. So you can see we've got our butterfly ribbon loops going one direction and our mossy green the other. Once they're in that nice X pattern, I'm just opening them up. And then last but not least, we'll spread out those 4 loops of our Swiss polka dot and open those guys up. So this is what I call a rough fluff. We'll come back into these loops and do a final fluff once we're finished with our swag. So the next step is we're going to angle trim all of our ribbon tails. So you're just going to grab a pair of scissors, come down about 1 inch on one side, and cut up diagonally to the corner. I'm going to leave them the length that they are now. We may have to give them a trim, but I want to play around with them first and see where we want them to lay. So let's get our ends trimmed. All right, now that our ends are trimmed, let's curl those guys. So this is a cardboard center from our roll of deco mesh. I always keep one of these in my toolbox because they are perfect for ribbon curling. They're about 1 inch in diameter. And to curl your ribbon tails, guys, I always start with the bottommost ribbon. You're just going to wrap your ribbon right around that cardboard tube all the way to the center of your bow and release. And you're going to have this cute little ribbon curl. You can curl your ribbon tails as many times as you need if they're too loose or you're just not happy with them. If they're too tight and you want to relax them a bit, just give them a pull. And so we're going to curl every single ribbon tail, and then we'll decide later if we need to trim them down. You guys, look how stinking cute that is. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's move on to our next step. We're going to actually add some ribbon tails to the upper left-hand area of our swag. And so what I want you to do, we're going to use one strand of each of the 4 ribbon types. And we're going to cut them at various lengths. So for the 2.5 inch ribbon, I've cut an 18-inch piece. Then we're going to cut a 16-inch piece of our second ribbon, of our third ribbon, and a 12-inch piece of that 5/8 inch twist polka dot. And then we're going to angle trim those ends. So I'm just going to fold that in half. So I can do both ends at once. Come down about an inch or so on the right-hand side and then cut up diagonally to the corner to give us that nice angle trim. What color theme are you all looking forward to this fall? I think I'm most excited about that burlap and mustard and navy this year. What do you guys think of that? We're just going to lay one piece on top of the other. Do our best to center. Again, not looking for perfection, guys. Just like that, we're going to fold this guy in half to identify that center point. And then we'll open it back up. And then I'm going to pinch it right there at that center point and kind of make it into a V right over my fingers. Let's grab our swag here. I'm going to add this basically catty corner from where our bow was. So I flipped this guy upside down. I'm going to find 2 neighboring pine ties and add these beauties in. And then I'll tuck those bits back under. And we're going to pull them away from our sign so that they basically look like a V. I'm just going to give them some curvature by running them up and over my finger, which is going to really round those guys. Since they're wired, they'll maintain that shape. Perfect. The next step is to add some greenery. So I have this really cute bush of greenery. I either got this from Hobby Lobby, TMI Gifts, or Craft Outlet. I'll leave all those websites for you below. And so this is called a floral bush, guys. And if you're new to wreath making, you'll soon discover that florals and greenery can quickly become the most expensive addition to your designs. And so I really tried to grab most of my things from Hobby Lobby, actually, because they've got fantastic quality and they've got a 40% off sale every other week. So be mindful of that as you're designing. This is called a bush, and then each individual piece is called a stem. And most times they will slide. And so by slide, what I mean is those rubber bits will move up and down so that you can adjust the various heights of your greenery or florals. And so I'm going to scooch mine towards the top so that that's a shorter, more condensed stem. You can see here I'm just pushing those guys right up. You can put them where you'd like them. And then I'm going to take my wire snips and trim each of these stems off. I'm going to leave a couple of inches of the stem, and that's what we'll use to anchor down into our swag. And so we'll be using this entire bush today. And so when I'm adding my greenery in, guys, this is just a personal preference. I like to dry place it first to make sure that I'm really happy with that placement. So I like to spread them out a little bit, just wake up those greenery bits, and then find them a home. So as you can see, I'm literally just working my way. I'm going to work my way all the way around our swag, opening up those pieces a little bit every time I grab one. And I'm just going to place them throughout the swag. And once I'm happy with that placement, then I'll come back through and add a drop of hot glue to each one of those guys to anchor them in nice and secure. So make sure you work your way all the way around here. I'm going to speed ahead so you can still see what I'm doing, but it won't take terribly long. We're just going to dry place them and then glue them in. Okay, I've got them all dry placed. I did reserve one stem that I've cut in half. I'm going to keep those back in case I see any holes or any place I'd like some filler once we're done with this beauty. So I'm happy with this dry placement. And so now I'm just going to start in one area. I'll pull out each stem one by one. I'm going to add about an inch bead of glue and anchor them back in. Okay, so the next step is to get some florals added. So I've got two 6-inch round sunflower heads. And what I like to do with my flowers, guys, I've trimmed this down and I'm just going to jerk on that a little bit to give it a tug and make sure it's nice and secure. You just never know, really. I'm going to anchor one below and one above. Since I've decided where I want to place that guy, I'm going to give a couple of full squirts of hot glue and really anchor that sunflower down in. Adorable, adorable. So I'm going to be really generous with my glue on my florals. I'm going to give it a hold for about 10 seconds to make sure it's really had time to anchor down. Okay, and now I've grabbed, this is actually a spring bush, but I really love this greenery. Guys, it's probably one of my favorites. This bush did come from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to grab my heavy duty cutters and trim off these greenery bits because I adore them. I'm just going to cut a few at a time. And they're pretty tightly woven on there. I've left myself a couple of inches of a stem, and I'm just going to anchor them down in where I feel like they'd be a cute addition. And remember, they're on a wire spine, so you can really play around with them and add them where you wish. Just make sure you give that glue a few minutes to dry before you maneuver them too much. You guys, look how stinking cute this beauty is coming together. I've grabbed a couple of these larger leaves that I'm going to add behind my sunflowers just to really help them pop. My goodness. Okay, last but not least, we're going to add a couple of super cute butterflies. I just grabbed a handful. I'm not sure yet how many we'll use, but if you can see, there's a couple of butterflies on our sign. There's some butterflies on our ribbon, and I think it'd be cute if we just added some butterflies into our swag. These actually came in a box of yard decorations from Amazon, so they're weatherproof and element proof. I'll make sure I'll leave a link for these for you below. I'm gonna snip off this stem and leave about an inch or so. Then I'm gonna run a pea-size amount of glue. Then I'm gonna add about an inch or so stripe of glue down that base and nestle those guys in. I've grabbed some yellow and orange. I think I'm just going to sprinkle a couple above and a couple below. All right, let's take a look. I think I'm just going to end up adding the 3 butterflies. I don't want to disturb them too much. They're still drying. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is so stinking cute. And remember, I've got my 2 leftover bits. I'm going to add them towards the top. And this beauty is finished. I'm going to curl those tails towards the top in just a little bit once that glue's had a chance to dry. I sure hope you enjoyed designing with me today. If you did, be sure to give this tutorial a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Happy crafting!